Imagine a cold night in 1967 on a secret proving ground near Kharkov. A steel monster weighing 38 tons accelerates to 60 kilometers per hour. Its 125mm smoothbore gun turns like a living creature and spits out a round every 6 to 8 seconds. No human loader, the machine loads itself. This is not just a tank. This is the T-64, the world's first main battle tank with an autoloader, composite armor, and a crew of only 3 men. It was lighter than its Western rivals, lower in silhouette, and deadlier. But here is the main paradox. This masterpiece of Soviet engineering barely fought in the classic tank battles of the Cold War. Why did the most advanced tank of its era remain in the shadows? Why was it almost buried during the prototype stage? And how did this high-tech garage project, by the standards of the time, become the ancestor of all modern T-series tanks? Today we will uncover the drama of the steel ghost called the T-64. The late 1950s. The world stands on the brink of a new tank race. NATO is ramping up production of M60s and Leopards armed with powerful 105mm guns. Meanwhile, Soviet tank armies of T-54s, T-55s, and T-62s seem unstoppable. But intelligence reports bring alarming news. The West is developing new ammunition that easily pierces the homogeneous armor of older vehicles. Shaped charges and fin-stabilized discarding sabot rounds turn classic medium tanks into tin cans. Old equipment suddenly became useless. A qualitative leap was needed, a tank that combined the firepower of a heavy, the protection of a fortress, and the mobility of a light vehicle. The Kharkov Design Bureau, led by the legendary Alexander Alexandrovich Morozov, the father of the T-34 and T-54, took on the challenge. The task seemed almost impossible: create a vehicle under 40 tons, with a crew of 3, yet invulnerable from the front to NATO's 105mm shells and capable of destroying any target at 2 kilometers. Morozov was not just a designer, he was a true visionary. He decided to break every rule. Instead of 4 crew members, only 3. The fourth, the loader, was replaced by a revolutionary carousel autoloader called Korzina. Instead of the usual torsion bar suspension, a complex hydromechanical system. And the engine? Not an ordinary diesel, but a compact 5-cylinder 2-stroke opposed engine, the 5TD, delivering 700 horsepower. It weighed just over 1 ton and allowed the tank to be low and short, a real ghost on the battlefield. Prototypes, Object 430, 432, and 434, went through hellish trials. The engine was temperamental. It refused to start in winter, overheated in summer, and its service life sometimes did not exceed 90 to 100 hours. The autoloader sometimes jammed not only shells, but also the hands of careless crew members. Generals grumbled, too complicated for conscripts. Bureaucracy pressed hard. The project cost 1.5 times more than the simpler T-72 that would later be launched as the People's Tank. But Morozov and his team did not give up. After dozens of breakdowns, fires, and redesigns, the T-64 was accepted into service in 1966 to 1967. It was a real feat, the world's first production tank with multi-layer composite armor, steel, ceramics, and textilite. The first with a 125mm smoothbore gun, and the first with an autoloader. The T-64 turned out to be an unlucky genius, too smart for its time. Let's dive into the iron of this steel beast. The main gun is the 125mm smoothbore 2A46. The projectile leaves the barrel at up to 1,800 meters per second. The armor-piercing, fin-stabilized discarding sabot round penetrates more than 300 to 400 millimeters of homogeneous armor at 2 kilometers. Later, guided missiles like the Cobra could be fired straight through the barrel, turning the tank into a sniper rifle on tracks. Rate of fire, 6 to 8 rounds per minute. Imagine the ground shaking while the tank delivers a barrage that even a fast Leopard cannot escape. The carousel autoloader holds 30 rounds. It selects the type of ammunition, a PFSDS, heat, or HE frag, feeds the round and the casing. The downside? If something goes wrong, the crew risks losing a hand. But in battle, it gave a colossal advantage. Protection was the secret sauce. The The frontal hull and turret armor was equivalent to 370 to 575 millimeters against kinetic and shaped charge threats. Ceramic inserts dissipated cumulative jets like a sponge absorbs water. The T-64 was the first Soviet tank that could withstand most NATO 105mm rounds in the frontal arc. Later modifications received Contact 1 explosive reactive armor. Mobility was impressive. 6 small road wheels with hydropneumatic elements. A tank weighing 38 to 42 tons could reach 60 to 65 kilometers per hour on the highway. It crossed trenches 2.85 meters wide, walls 0.8 meters high, and forded rivers up to 5 meters deep with preparation. Reverse speed was almost as fast as forward. This ghost could suddenly appear from the forest, strike and vanish. The 5TD engine produced 700 to 750 horsepower, giving a power-to-weight ratio of about 18 to 19 horsepower per ton. Compact, but hot-tempered and demanding, a real fiery beast. The T-64 barely knew classic combat baptism in the Great Wars of the Cold War. It was kept in elite units of the Soviet group of forces in Germany, as a secret weapon in case of a big war with NATO. In real conflicts, it appeared rarely. Some vehicles saw limited action, but the true test came after the collapse of the USSR, in the hands of the Ukrainian army in 2014 and beyond. Modernized Bulat versions showed that even a 1960s veteran can still bite hard when handled properly. Why didn't it fight en masse? First, it was too expensive and complex to maintain for a mass army. Second, the simpler and cheaper T-72 appeared, the people's tank. The T-64 remained an elite, and many were later mothballed or modernized in Ukraine. It was unlucky, it was ahead of its time, but the system was not ready for such complexity. Let's compare it honestly. Against the early American M1 Abrams, the T-64 was lighter, 38 tons versus 55 plus, lower in silhouette, and had better rate of fire thanks to the autoloader. The Abrams later won in protection and electronics, but the early T-64 could surprise with its mobility and cost. Against the German Leopard 1, the T-64 had a much more powerful 125mm gun compared to the 105mm, better protection, and a smaller crew. The Leopard was faster on roads, but the T-64 was more compact and deadlier in a frontal duel. Against its brother, the T-72, the T-64 was more technologically advanced, better armor, more sophisticated autoloader, lower profile. But the T-72 was simpler, more reliable, and cheaper to produce. The T-80 inherited many ideas from the T-64, but with a gas turbine. In the end, the T-64 won in quality, but lost in quantity and simplicity. The T-64 left a huge legacy. It became the first true main battle tank, laying down the concept of fewer people, more automation and protection. Its ideas live on in the T-80, T-90, and even influenced global trends. The Kharkov Ghost proved that sometimes the most complex and expensive project becomes the foundation for an entire era. Today, almost 60 years later, modernized T-64s are still on the front lines. Is there any better praise for its creators? Now a question for you. Was it worth creating such a high-tech tank in the 1960s? Or was it better to immediately make the simple and mass-produced T-72? And the second question, will unmanned robot tanks eventually replace human tank crews? Or will a human always be needed in the steel heart of the machine? Write your thoughts in the comments. Which version is closer to the truth? If you enjoyed this video, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss new stories about Iron Legends. In the next video, we'll talk about how the T-72 became the most mass-produced tank in the world. Thank you for watching. See you on the next battlefield of history.